Good morning. I hope everybody has had a good breakfast. I enjoyed mine, and I thought it was interesting that there was a magnifying glass right at my seat, so I think there is a message there. Well, welcome to the Nonprofit Association of Oregon's annual meeting. I'm Rick Nitti, and I'm the outgoing president of the Nonprofit Association Board of Directors. I'm also the executive director of Neighborhood House, so need to get that plug in there here in Portland. So thank you all for taking time to join us here today to reflect on NAO's accomplishments over the last year and to hear about our course for the coming year. We are especially excited to be experimenting with video links to 3 viewing hubs in Bend, Medford, and Springfield, so that members across the state have an opportunity to join without incurring travel costs. So hello, friends out in the state of Oregon. What a great opportunity to use technology to bring us all together. Before we get started with our program, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of today's meeting: Bank of the Cascades, Kaiser Permanente Northwest, James E. Richmond CPA, Lewis Kennedy Associates, and The Standard. In addition, our gratitude also goes out to our foundation supporters who are shown here and to their representatives of our foundation partners that could be here with us today. So Kim Thomas, Teresa Diebel, Jill Fuglister at Meyer Memorial Trust, Max Gimbel at the Ford Family Foundation, Christina Sands from the Oregon Community Foundation joins us from Medford. We appreciate their deep commitment to our success in our association over the past year. And I think I saw Diane Gill from Kaiser here. So welcome. I'd also like to thank artist Teresa Weil, who is here today to highlight her Because She Cares portrait project. Teresa has created portraits of 24 women leaders of Oregon's nonprofits in cut paper collage portraits. The body of the work will tour the state as a means of honoring the constellation of women-led efforts that help make Oregon's nonprofits great. At the conclusion of that tour, the work will be used to raise funds for all the organizations represented. Thanks so much, Teresa, for your inspirational project. And I recommend Tired Old Men for your next one. Yeah, I don't like to put attention on myself. This year we have a great agenda for you all, and the agenda is up there. We start out with, of course, breakfast, and then we start getting warmed up and get into the good stuff, into the meat. So we'll have our business program with these welcoming remarks, our mission and service report, our governance report. We'll introduce our new board of directors, and we'll start looking ahead and then take a break. We'll go on and have our keynote presentation for the day and move towards closing remarks and then networking and meet the authors and book signing. So I've got my book signed. Pleased about that. NAO is celebrating our 4th year as your state nonprofit association for Oregon. This past year has been a very busy one. We introduced Jim White as our new executive director just 1 year ago today at our last annual meeting. Jim and the NAO team have made huge strides this year in delivering our mission to strengthen the collective voice, leadership, and capacity of nonprofits to enrich the lives of all Oregonians. This past year, the NAO staff and board undertook the work of defining our theory of change, and Jim's going to talk about that a little bit later. As one product of that work, we have adjusted NAO's vision And that vision is that Oregon's nonprofits are visible and valued as essential partners to our society. We believe that the strength of a vibrant, just, and engaged society depends on strong relationships between the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. We are excited to use our new theory of change as a map to guide our programming and undertake our mission to support and engage with all of you in Oregon's nonprofit sector. I'm fortunate to have played a role in the transition of TAX to NAO and from Carrie Hoops to Jim White as our executive directors. Today, I am transitioning myself as I hand over the responsibilities of NAO Board President to Karen Kelly Taragosa. Karen. Karen is the Executive Director of Vision Action Network, serving Washington County. So Karen, I'm glad to hand the reins over to you. So, yeah, and Jim? Jim White, Executive Director of NAO.
Don't leave. Yep. Yes. Well, I am honored to be serving our sector as the new board president of the Nonprofit Association of Oregon. As one of my very first duties or tasks in that role, I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank Rick Nitti as our outgoing board president. Rick has been the president of the board for the last 2 years and has been an incredibly dedicated, passionate, and a wonderful leader for the nonprofit sector. So please join me in thanking Rick for his work at NAO. And he's not going anywhere. We're not letting him actually leave. So I'm going to really quickly turn this over to Jim.
Well, thank you, Rick and Karen. I'm excited to be starting my second year here at NAO. Those of you that were here last year may remember that I started work just 5 days before this annual meeting. So I'm hoping this year I don't appear to be quite as shell-shocked as I was last year, standing in front of all of you. As Rick mentioned, over the past year, we've worked through a process to create a theory of change for what NAO is trying to achieve here in Oregon. Like all theories of change, ours articulates both the building blocks required to bring about our long-term goals and the lenses through which we view the world. This set of linked building blocks and lenses enable us to connect our beliefs, which are here. For those of you who have a copy of this at your table, you can follow along. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. To link our beliefs about the sector with the strategies that we're using to meet the results that we feel are needed to be achieved. Our mission, when focused through the lenses of our vision and core values, guides us and our decisions and enables us to move along this causal pathway. This theory of change and the feedback loops that keep NAO in touch with organizations, funders, and partners throughout Oregon provides a basis for accountability, continual learning, and the evolution of vital programs and services that support the nonprofit sector. As this sector-wide network representing all Oregon nonprofits, NAO works across the state to strengthen and connect nonprofit leaders, organizations, and the sector as a whole. NAO accomplishes this by giving voice to the collective achievements and aspirations of nonprofits, growing organizational and leadership capacities and diversity, and facilitating knowledge exchange among nonprofits and across the nonprofit public and private sectors. Building on our rich history of capacity building over more than 3 decades, NAO ensures a future in which Oregon nonprofits are visible and valued as essential contributors to our society. Our theory of change is organic and it will evolve over time. As the landscape of challenges to communities and nonprofits change, as NAO and our partners develop new capacities, and as we see the results of our collective work. I believe this will be an important map to guide our work into the future. I want to appreciate the NAO team and board for their engagement, enthusiasm, and creative thinking through the process we used to develop our theory. I especially want to thank Paula Manley for her leadership in facilitating us through this process, and McKenna Labens for her graphic design work. So thank you to both of them. Is Paula here? Oh, she's here today. We implement our theory of change through our program services to all of you. We believe that our core values are common to many of you. For us, they define what it means to be a nonprofit: collaboration, excellence, equity and inclusion, impact, learning, service, and stewardship. Most of you are aware of the various services and programs that NAO implements: our helpline and resources, our professional development training, networking, and convening, our consulting services, our executive transition services, our work in advocacy, those member benefits that you get as part of being part of this network, and specialized programs that we have in equity and inclusion and rural community development. What you may not realize is how unique NAO is in providing these. I was pleasantly surprised this year when I attended the National Council of Nonprofits. They're the Association of State Associations, so they're technically the largest association of nonprofits in the country. When I attended their annual meeting in Washington, D.C. this year to see what other state associations do to support the nonprofits across the country, what I learned was that while many other state associations offer a particular subset of services, there are very few that offer the broad expanse of programs that NAO does. And I think that is extremely unique here in Oregon, that we have this asset and we can build on that asset. I'd like to take a moment now and report to you, our membership, just a few of the achievements that NAO has had in this past year. Many of you may be really tired of getting policy alerts from me. They're threatening the tax incentive for charitable giving, and they're targeting several tax reform and revenue bills this last legislative session that I think we're regularly filling your inbox. But I really appreciate both your patience in receiving those alerts and your actions when you read them. The mobilization of all of you in this network, so essential and fundamental to what nonprofit action is all about, preserved Oregon's charitable giving incentive. You did it. Neither in the regular session nor in the special session were any bills passed that capped the Oregon tax deduction to give charitably. I think you owe a round of applause for that. That's a victory for all of you, for your supporters, for the people who participate in your programs, and for the entire nonprofit sector. And it's something that we're seeing a lot of attention being brought to those states that are dealing with these battles at the national level. In the middle of that battle for the charitable deduction, we also helped establish a new law here in Oregon in collaboration with the Oregon Attorney General's office. And to put it bluntly, it's to weed out scam nonprofits. It's the first of its kind in the United States. The new law requires charities to spend at least 30% of their IRS Form 990 reported functional expenses on their charitable programs and services. Seems mind-blowing, doesn't it? NAO believes that a minimum floor of 30% will easily identify those organizations that year after year devote only a fraction of donated funds to their program mission. These organizations are anomalies. They're draining away charitable donations from charities like yours, providing essential services to our communities. This law will require that charities which run afoul will have to notify donors that contributions will not be deductible for state tax purposes. And it was important that at a time when we were fighting so hard for the right to even have a charitable deduction here, we needed to show leadership as a sector to police our own, to help get the right kinds of laws in place that are good enough to be able to use forms, which we're all required to give anyway, to be able to deal with some of these types of organizations. We view this as an important step in weeding out these kinds of telemarketing firms that have made a business model of preying on the good name of our sector. Our support both for this law and our work on the charitable incentive were featured in both the Chronicle of Philanthropy and Nonprofit Quarterly, as well as local news outlets across the state. These helped us raise the visibility and advance public understanding of the nonprofit sector's importance, especially as relates to our capacities in communities and our economic impact. NAO's team of on-staff and associated consultants and trainers delivered coaching, training, and leadership development sessions across the state to more than 4,200 nonprofit leaders. These sessions are designed to develop leaders and help them maximize their organizational effectiveness and impact. Over 500 community leaders in 30 rural communities received targeted training, consulting, facilitation, and community engagement through our partnership with the Ford Family Foundation, RDI, and Human Systems. And Craig, can you raise your hand? And Max? Is Max here somewhere? Max? No? No Max. Okay. We've expanded NAO's interim executive director and development director placement consultancies and search services. This is a unique asset, and again, I go back to what other state associations have. There are only a handful of state associations across the United States that have this kind of an asset, where you have, in this team, over 360 years of experience in directing nonprofits and development initiatives. These consultancy placements allow a nonprofit going through a critical succession, the breathing space and guidance they need to chart the right course for their organization's mission and for sustainability. This last year, NAO's ETS team served in 20 placements as either the executive director or development director of one of our members. In growing the capacity of the sector, for the 36th year, NAO has delivered innovative organizational development and consulting services. This ability for our state association to work with nonprofits through the mechanism of deep dive consultancies on strategic planning, board development, and fundraising training is a hallmark of NAO and TAX before. We've continued to invest in cultural competency, equity and inclusion coaching, and have deepened our investment and broadened our rural-specific programming, and we'll continue to build on that into the future. Partnerships with other capacity builders will be the key to success for Oregon nonprofits. We all hear about collective impact and how we all need to coordinate and work together. We're dedicated to building and strengthening those partnerships at both the state and the national levels. This past year, we co-produced with other organizations more professional development seminars than we've ever done before. We do this to amplify our efforts, to maximize impact for those participating, and to decrease overlapping services. We're especially proud to announce a new fiscal sponsorship of the Young Nonprofit Professionals Network of Portland, a group of emerging leaders in our sector who engage and support current and future members of nonprofits through professional development and networking opportunities. We want to see them go out and become a 501c3 on their own and support our network, their network, nonprofit youth leaders in whatever way that they can imagine. And we want to give them that opportunity to get their feet under them and grow their network, and we're going to do everything we can to support them. We continue to offer our nonprofit helpline and resources through phone, electronic, and in-person assistance and information sessions to Oregon nonprofits. A part of our work that we'll continue to improve on. An example of our work in bringing additional resources to the sector is the Nonprofit Legal Assistance Project that we do in collaboration with the Multnomah Bar Association's Young Lawyers section. This project connects small and emerging nonprofits to essential legal guidance. And while it is the Multnomah Bar Association, this is a program that any nonprofit or emerging nonprofit or group of volunteers who want to form a nonprofit can take advantage of anywhere in the state. So these are just a few of the accomplishments of NAO in the last year. I feel it's my duty, since we are a membership association and this is our membership meeting and you are in some way my boss through the representative of our board, to report to you briefly on our financials. We started fiscal year 13 with an approved budget of about $1.6 million, but we realized about halfway through the year that we would have to make some adjustments, and we revised our budget down by about $100,000. Our estimates at year-end close will leave us just a little bit in the positive, so it appears that we were able to make that needed adjustment just in time, and we'll end the year with an estimated plus, if you will, just above that line. The NAO board approved our FY14 budget, which began on October 1st. We work on an October 1st, September 30th year. We're approved for $1.75 million. And we're projecting a substantial growth in our partnership with the Ford Family Foundation, who are supporting us to expand our services across the state and rural communities. We're confident that we'll be able to meet all of our targets for our new budget. And while we'll always need some degree of generous operational support from foundations, organizations like Meyer Memorial Trust, OCF, Collins, have been incredibly supportive of NAO's mission over these last 4 years, and we really appreciate that starter capital and that operating support, that priming of the pump that they've allowed. I recognize that while we'll still need some level of that, so don't stop sending those checks, it's my vision to continue to reduce NAO's reliance on those grants and continue to build other revenue strategies for how we'll move forward. So at this point, I'd like to turn over our board report to Charlie LaTourette to give you an update on where we stand as an organization in terms of our new board structures. Thank you so much for the opportunity to serve all of you.
Not quite that big. Well, good morning. As NAO's chair of the Governance Committee, I have the honor of reporting on this year's elections. The Nonprofit Association of Oregon bylaws allow for the board of a board of between 9 and 20 directors, of which a majority must be members of the association. A statewide call for board nominations was issued on June 5th and resulted in 25 outstanding individual nominations. The largest ever, in fact, that number is the biggest group we've ever had, and they were really outstanding candidates that made some very, very interesting and exciting interviews and difficult decisions. The Governance Committee reviewed those applications, conducted interviews, and put forth a slate of 5 directors, new directors for the board. On August 30th, the board survey was sent electronically to 473 voting members. The deadline for voting was September 27th, and NAO's board secretary at the time counted 73 members, or 15% in favor of the slate, which is easily a quorum, and there were no oppositions to the slate. I'd just like to say thank you to the Governance Committee for all their hard work on that. They did a lot of interviews and calls and follow-up, and really very appreciated. NAO directors may serve 1, 2, or 3-year terms with a maximum of 6 consecutive years of service. And as of today, October 18th, there are 16 directors, 12 of which represent member organizations and 4 which are at-large members. And now I'd like to introduce the 2013-14 slate of directors. I'd like to ask each of them to stand as I read their name and remain standing until I'm finished. And please hold your applause until the end. I'll start with the newest members. Mr. Ian Lombard from Portland, at-large member, a 2-year term. Ian is the managing partner of Skyline Capital Venture Growth Investment Fund. Michelle Neal from Portland. She's a nonprofit member representative, a 2-year term. The Pacific Northwest, Michelle is the regional director, of the Pacific Northwest Inroads, an organization that develops and places underserved youth in business sector and prepares them for leadership. Chris Otis from Portland, a nonprofit member serving a 3-year term. Chris is the executive director of SMART, Start Making a Reader Today. SMART is a volunteer-driven statewide nonprofit providing one-on-one reading support for children pre-K through grade 3. Chris is not able to join us today, which is why you don't see her standing. Nancy Ramirez Arriaga from Beaverton. Nancy, are you here? Yes, we are. An at-large member, a 3-year term. Nancy is a consultant providing coaching, training, and facilitation to nonprofit organizations. In addition, she serves as a program director for the Oregon Leadership Project through the Latino Network. And Jen Rusk in Bend, member at large, a 3-year term, the owner of Rusk Coaching and Consulting based in Bend, Oregon. And Jen is in Bend today hosting our Bend location. So hi, Jen. Hope you're standing. The 2014 continuing members on the board include our newest president, Karen Kelly Torregrosa, executive director of the Vision Action Network in Washington County. Vice President Chris Crank, president and CEO of Albertina Kerr Centers. Treasurer Tanya Graham from Ashland. She is the executive director of the GEOS Institute, also hosting our Medford location. So hello, Tanya. Secretary Ross Laybourne, member at large, a former assistant attorney general with the Oregon Department of Justice, and Ross was also the attorney in charge of the Oregon Charitable Activities section. Public Policy Chair Mark Langseth, president and chief executive officer of the I Have a Dream Foundation. Mark is not able to join us today. And Governance Chair is Claire Seguin from Springfield, Executive Director of the Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation, and Claire is also hosting from the Springfield location. So hello, Claire. And our outgoing President, Rick Nitti, Executive Director of Neighborhood House, Ms. Eloise Damrosch, Executive Director of the Regional Arts and Culture Council, David Leslie, Executive Director of Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, and Bob Lieberman, Grants Pass Executive Director of Caros. And finally, but last but not least, Brandy Tuck, Executive Director of Portland Homeless Family Solutions. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Board of Directors. Thank you.
So as my second task as the new board president, Charlie, on behalf of the entire board and staff of NAO, we want to thank you for your service. Charlie is rolling off of the NAO board after 6 years of dedicated service. He was a member of the original Nonprofit Association of Oregon Steering Committee when it was a program of tax, and he has served on the governance committee for the past 2 years. So please join us in thanking Charlie for his work with NAO.
So looking ahead to our next year, what NAO has in store, we'll be applying our theory of change to guide our programming and track results toward our goals. We're interested in your feedback on that document because, as I said, it is organic, and we're interested to see how you relate to that kind of thinking and that kind of understanding of what our sector is meant to do and what you would expect from the nonprofit association to help you. We will expand our services and support through expanding our partnerships and deepening our professional development offerings across the state. And we've begun work with nonprofit leaders around Oregon through advisory committees and focus groups to identify needs for advanced professional development offerings to meet the needs of our nonprofits as they grow in size and complexity. We'll carry that work forward into the future, and we look for your participation and support as we do so. We also will play a key role as a convener, a networker, and a coordinator. We feel it is our job as the state association to be an organization that can be a resource that can help you all understand what each other are doing when you're in different locations, have different subsectors, are doing different kinds of work, but you know there may be something that you can partner with someone, you can attend a training, you can have opportunities for both professional and organizational growth. And in that regard, I'm going to ask Karen to come up again and share with you an exciting new development that we have in store for you that is going to go live today.
So as part of our look forward into next fiscal year, or actually this fiscal year, it is my pleasure to unveil, as Jim mentioned, an exciting new resource for our state. We've heard from hundreds of nonprofits and foundations across Oregon that the sector needs a centralized location to coordinate our events. I'm sure that we've all experienced the frustration of scheduling conflicts where our event gets scheduled on the same day as another organization. This happens to us all the time. You've asked us to help solve the problem, and today NAO is very pleased to launch the Oregon Nonprofit Events Calendar. The calendar provides a location for nonprofits and organizations serving nonprofits to post events relevant to nonprofit staff, board members, and volunteers. It affords our statewide network greater opportunities for professional development, promotional exposure for events, and a means for organizations to coordinate event dates and reduce conflicts or duplications. The calendar is searchable by event type, region, and city. Event types are color-coded for ease in locating specific types of events, including workshops, conferences, fundraising events, meetings, and other things. It is a user-driven calendar, so organizations need to post their own events, and it will only be useful, clearly, if organizations actually use it. Oregon nonprofits and government entities have free, unlimited posting access to the calendar. Businesses, higher education institutions, and out-of-state entities pay a nominal $25 fee to post an event. Postings will be moderated by NAO staff and will appear online 24 to 48 hours after you post them. So please visit the NAO website, www.nonprofitoregon.org, and follow the link to the calendar page where directions to post can be found. And we posted some. It was very easy to do. Give it a try and let us know what you think. We will continue to upgrade the calendar, so your feedback will help us to improve this great resource for Oregon's nonprofit sector. Our team is available to answer any questions if you get stuck and help you in any way. Do you want to say something else?
So the best laid plans, we're actually quite a bit ahead of schedule. And what I'd like to ask then for us to do is, if you could at your tables, I'd like you to take a look and reflect on that theory of change document. And in your packets, you'll find the text that goes with each of those different building blocks. And we'd like to ask you for the next maybe 15 minutes to just discuss at your tables, and then we're going to ask for some feedback on what you see are things that you can relate to. What are things that you feel there may be some questions or issues that you have? And give us a little bit of understanding of how you can relate to this. And we'll also have the opportunity for our viewing hubs to give us information coming in to also share with us all here. So if you could take like 15 minutes now, and I'll come back up. Thank you.